Hello, my tubies and my teletubbies. It's SheilaTruelove. Excuse me. And this morning, what time is it? It's 6 o'clock in the morning on this fine Saturday morning. And I've been posting a lot, anything to try to keep my tubies, excuse me, built up. I need to make some coffee or have some tea or something. Anyway, today's topic for discussion is how karma works, and what is his life without you. Now, after listening to several women who had partners that treated them badly, or wives whose husbands are now known as runaway husbands, I asked them, and I really, really needed to know, how is his life without you? If his life is better, then maybe it wasn't him, and you need to take a self-inventory on yourself. If his life ends up like what I'm about to share with you, then you can now see how karma really works. Now, I want you to keep in mind as you're listening what Proverbs chapter 17, verse 13 says. If you do wrong to those who were good to you, you will have trouble the rest of your life. Now, what I'm about to share with you is what are the men who I was involved with, what is their life like without me? Let's talk about what their life was like when they had me. We're first going to talk about my children's father. His name is Felix. Now, when he was with me, he always looked good and he was always well kept. He was studying his Bible. He was actually devouring spiritual material like a man who hadn't eaten for weeks, tubies. He was always learning something new. At least every week, he was always learning something new when it came to me. He always kept money. He always had a job. He looked healthy. And when I met him, he was like on the lean side, the thin side, but he went from thin to a healthy size. He also had someone to raise his children and manage his home, and someone who loved him faithfully. Now, when it came to Gregory Elliott, a man who you know, I already told you in many of my videos, I loved him. This man was the love of my life. I loved him like no other. Now, when he was with me, he had stopped using drugs. Now, he had some slip-ups, but when he started studying the Bible, he had stopped all of that. He started working regularly instead of just depending on his SSI check that he received monthly. Because you know SheilaTruelove is not going to be with no man who either don't have a job or he don't have an income. That's not me. But he also started working. He attended Christian meetings from time to time. He read more books, educating himself regularly. Now, Gregory wasn't like my second husband because Gregory had a college education. He was educated, but he had stopped reading when he had started hanging out. You know how that can be. He started reading books more and educating himself. He also became a great conversationalist. People started to look up to him and they admired him. He also did Bible studies. He studied with several of the people from my church at the time. I waited on this man and I took very good care of him every single day. And I also loved him very much and faithfully. And I made sure that he always ate healthy foods. And he was a healthy weight when he was with me. Now, when it came to my second husband, Gregory was my fiance. I was with him for 9 years. I was engaged to be married to him, but I kept getting these red flags, red lights, yellow lights. So I kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Anyway, you know, I think about, let's just stay focused now. When it came to my second husband, he was a lot of work. Okay, now he was a lot of work because he had two disabilities. You know, he learned things slowly, and he had physical limitations also. So I had to put in a lot of work with that character. Now, he learned something from me on a regular basis. There wasn't a day, listen to me when I tell you, there wasn't a day that passed that he wouldn't ask me to help him with something. Can you help me with this? Can you show me how to do this? Can you do this for me? He really had a hard time figuring things out for himself. He was never wearing dirty clothes or had holes in his socks and in his undergarments. He kept money in the bank and at home. He attended Christian meetings, and he even did Bible readings on the platform. He was even up there on the platform giving Bible readings. He had Bible studies weekly. We also had family studies and family meetings. He ate healthy. When he was with me, he was a healthy weight. He was like 180, between 180 and 183 pounds. Now he might look like he's 100 and, 60, soaking wet. If that, maybe 150 now. I don't know. I was his greatest cheerleader. He kept a job. People were starting to treat him with respect. He also was developing some morals and a conscience because he didn't have that, but when he was sticking close to the shepherd, Jesus Christ, he was starting to develop morals and a conscience. And he always had someone who was going to wait on him hand and foot. I did the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the making sure his joints was I would massage him. He had someone who was waiting on him hand and foot. He was actually treated like a king. I also loved him faithfully. Now, I didn't love him the same way that I loved Greg because Robert didn't have morals or conscience, whereas Greg, he did. Robert he still is a pathical liar, whereas Gregory, he could never lie to me without telling me the truth either that same day or the next day. He wasn't comfortable with lying to me. Whereas Robert, he lies like he breathes. Lies like he breathes. He'll tell one truth and then 10 lies. It was just horrible. Now I think about how is their life without me? Okay? This is when you can determine whether you were the problem or was it them. Now, what is their life like without me? Without me, Tubies, all of them are using drugs. Felix, he's on crack, crystal meth, and heroin. Now, keep in mind, he was the father of my first husband. I married him as a virgin, had the children. I played by the rules. You're supposed to get married to your husband. You're supposed to have your children with your husband. I did all of that. And I end up in the end, he cheated on me. I had to kick his behind. Now, he cheated on me twice. See, he was one of the fortunate ones who got a second chance. But that's because I was, 20, in my 20s, and I was a virgin. What the hell did I know? Huh. Now, without me, like I said, he's on crack, crystal meth, and heroin. Okay? Now, when it came to Gregory has passed on. But before he died, he had returned to being a full-blown crackhead. And he ended up in a nursing home, and he suffered from dementia before he died. Now, when it comes to Robert, he's back smoking cigarettes because he had quit smoking cigarettes. He was getting healthier and healthier. And guess what? You guessed it. He's right back on crack. He's like he's just back on crack, and he looks horrible. He looks terrible. I mean, he lost so much weight. His head looks like it's shrunk. His clothes look like they're like 4 times too big on him. And he's walking around looking like a train wreck. He's a walking train wreck. Now, when you think about the people, think about the people that they have in their life or the people that they had in their life right now, are they better off with them Or were they doing so much better when they were with me or when they were with you? Think about the people that your ex is with now. Is that person better than you? Is your ex looking so much better now that he's with this person? Is he doing so much better now that he's with that other person? You see, that's how you can tell those other people are not really taking your ex, seriously. They're not taking them seriously, because if they was taking them seriously, they would be looking better, they would be doing better, and they would be at the top of their game. They would have their, excuse my French, they would have their shit together. But if they're still looking like a walking train wreck, or looking like something who hit what and ran, then you know that it wasn't you, and you know that you were definitely a blessing to them. Now just look at how badly they are doing and how badly they look. And you have to say, please, you must say and think to yourself how happy you are that they're now someone else's headache. They're somebody else's burden. And please recognize a blessing when you receive one, ladies, please. The only thing I do for them right now, or I could do for Felix and Robert, is I pray for them. That's all you should, and that's all you need to do. Now, we know we have to forgive because that's what Jehovah and Jesus Christ instructed us to do. That's a command. That's not a request. There's a difference between a request, a rule, and a command. A command, we are commanded to forgive each other. Now, of course, I forgive them for their wrongs, but you don't ever have to make a reconciliation. You don't have to reconcile with them. Just like if someone stole your wallet or was a thief, you forgive them, but you don't have to make a reconciliation, or you don't have to reconcile. If somebody raped you, of course you forgive them, but I don't think you want to be hanging out with your rapist too much. I don't think you want to reconcile with that person. A lot of times these people are too far gone. And we're not Jesus Christ. We're not. Only Jesus can help them now. And I think about down the road, it seemed like, I used to ask Jehovah, why is it that these men today, they seem to get away with so much when it comes to the way that they have abused, cheated, and continuously mistreat women? Why is it that they get away with it, so it seems? Now, these are supposed to be the leaders and the head of the household over women and children. Yet, they don't take God seriously. They give Jesus Christ their behind to kiss. And they refuse to be God-fearing. And then, guess what? Jesus Christ and Jehovah took me to the sanctuary. When you have those epiphanies. And I think about how the men who treated women so badly, how they ended up. Now, the first one was my brother Michael, who was one of my favorite brothers. He died at the age of 56. And his last days on this earth was very sad, very miserable, and he died a crackhead. He had to walk around with a pacemaker implanted in his chest before he died. And he was only 56. That's still relatively young. And then I think about my brother Ronald, who I loved also. Another one of my favorites. He died in his 20s. And he used to be a pimp, encouraging women, putting women out there on the street to sell themselves. You know how a pimp treat women. And look at that. He died in his 20s, and his last days on this earth were miserable and sad too. Then my brother Derek. That's the one who tried to rape me. And if it wasn't for my brother Kasim walking in, I would have been a messed up, jacked up little girl and grew up to be a probably very mentally disturbed, emotionally disturbed woman. But thanks to my brother Kasim, he walked in and he protected me. Now, Derek, he was in his 30s when he died. His last days was really miserable because he died of AIDS. He's the one who infected my sister-in-law, Cynthia. I can use her name because she's dead now. He infected her. She wasn't his jump off, his side piece, or his mistress. This was his wife. Who uses a condom with their husband or their wife? Come on. He died suffering from AIDS. And this is when it was in the 80s, when all they had was AZT back then. 30 is young. My brother Kasim, the one who did help me, but he also treated women badly, cheated on his wife. Every time you look up, he was cheating on his wife, treated women badly. He was a crackhead and an alcoholic. That's how he died. He was suffering, and he always had to be sedated. He ended up in like a mental institution where they had to constantly monitor his behavior, and he was in his 50s. And don't forget, I told you about my ex-husband, Felix. He's a crackhead and a heroin junkie, and he's in and out of rehabs, but he never succeeds. He's also been in and out of jail, and he looks terrible. With Greg, he suffered also. He suffered a lot because Greg loves freedom. One thing he loves is his freedom, and that was taken away from him when he had to be locked up and confined in that nursing home. And he ended up wearing Pampers. You know? He was a crackhead and a dope smoker. You know dope, THC, weed. They call it weed. That's dope. THC smoker. And also cigarettes. That did a lot of damage to his lungs. His memory was gone. He suffered from a severe case of dementia. And he also ended up in a wheelchair. You know? He died. He died at the age of 68. And like I told you, Robert, he's still alive. My ex-husband, he's back on crack, smoking cigarettes again, back to dealing with prostitutes and transvestites. And he's homeless. The last time I heard, he was leaving one place, City Mission or shelter or some crack house he was staying in. And he said he had to move again. So he's homeless. You know, my divorce was final October 12th, 2016. Then I think about this brother in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. Everybody thought he was just such a great guy. His name was what? Wayne Goodwin? He was cheating on his wife for over 7 years. He ended up shooting his side piece, the woman he was cheating with, and he ended up killing himself. He was in his early 40s. And Jehovah and Jesus Christ exposed all the things he had did in a big way. And the thing about it is all of this stuff happened so suddenly. Suddenly, like Proverbs chapter 6, verse 15 says. It says, therefore, his calamity will come suddenly and instantly. He will be broken and there will be no healing. He's dead. And then I think about a friend of mine, and she lives in one of the other duplexes. She had a husband who cheated on her constantly, even brought women into the house, into their marital bed. He even left her for that other woman. He ended up with very poor health. And the woman he left his wife for, she kicked him out. And now he needed her to care for him because guess what? No one else would. She got to see his last days on this earth. And he was in constant misery. I have another friend. Her husband cheated on her. He even moved out with the other woman. The relationship that he was with that other woman, it was very abusive. They were constantly fighting in public. I'm talking about even physically. Eventually, he died of AIDS shortly after he moved in. And he died in his early 50s. He died of AIDS. And then I think about Kasim Jr., my nephew. He was also a woman beater. He was rough on women, cheated, didn't understand what the word faithful and loyalty meant. He suffered in the hospital for months before he died, and he was 42. All of these dudes, they were cheaters, abusive, and very disrespectful. Yeah. Women, they thought that they could disrespect, abuse, and treat women badly and that they wouldn't have to pay. Well, Jesus does care about what happens to women. And trust me, we do have a protector and an avenger. That's right. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 32 through 35, it clearly says, a man who commits adultery is a fool. He brings about his what? His own destruction. he will suffer disease, disgrace, and never be free from the shame. So, when it comes to how karma works, be patient. Jesus Christ got this. You have a good day, my tubies, my Teletubbies. You always have a choice. Please choose wisely. I think in the 21st century it's wise to stay single, but hey, that's me. To each his own. I love you.